Here's a pressure worth the conversation. You were called to ministry, but you feel more like a CEO than a shepherd, at least at times. And nobody trained you for that. You studied theology, not team building. You learned how to preach, not how to plan workflows. You dreamed of changing lives, not tracking volunteer schedules. But now you're stuck trying to run a church with systems you never built while trying to shepherd souls at the same time. I mean, no wonder this job can feel so heavy. Here's what I see time and time again. Pastors assume that if they focus on the spiritual, the structural stuff will just work itself out. But kind of a newsflash, it doesn't. It doesn't just work itself out. In fact, avoiding management doesn't make the need go away. It actually creates problems like volunteer burnout and staff confusion and that overwhelming feeling that makes ministry feel like survival, not leadership. That's what happens when we avoid managing the organizational aspects of this organism. And you know what you do? You start asking kind of some questions. Is it me? Am I doing something wrong? Well, no, you're not. But you might be missing a mindset shift that could unlock everything. It really is time that we debunk the myth that management is a distraction from ministry. Because here's the truth. Every effective movement in your church was managed by someone. That powerful worship moment, it was most likely rehearsed and thought about in advance. That volunteer who, actually showed up early to volunteer or at least on time, someone recruited, somebody trained, somebody scheduled and followed up with them. That kind of budget that you just skimmed through last week, well, someone tracked every dollar so that ministry could stay sustainable. None of that just happened. It was led, it was structured, and it was stewarded. You're not being unspiritual by managing well. You're being strategic. And that is sacred work. So how do we lead with kind of both of our heart and with systems? I would tell you to start with the 4 management functions. When I got my MBA, I took an entire course on management, and a healthy section of it was focused on these 4 management functions. And all 4 of them are important to your local church. Let me give them to you individually, and I'll give you a little bit of content around each one. Here's the first one, planning. Planning. It's a management function, planning. You ask questions like, what's the goal and what needs to happen and by when? That's what planning is all about. Where are we now and what's the goal? And what do we need to do today to begin to move forward so that we can make progress towards that goal? Great plans, right? Great plans will put a step-by-step process in place. Think of it like a discipleship pathway, right? Discipleship doesn't happen by accident. Everything great happens because there was a plan. Now, there are times we can have accidental success. Here's the problem. Accidental success isn't repeatable, and it isn't fixable when it isn't working. We don't want the good things that happen to be an accident. We want a plan so that we can up the odds of great things happening. So planning, it's a management function. Where are you now and what's the goal? What needs to happen? What is the plan that you should build to go from where you are to where you want to be? The next one, number 2, the second management function is organizing. This is really about responsibility. Who's responsible and what resources do they need to get their job done? I mean, very simple example, but take, maybe a preschool ministry. At the church I led, Woodstock City, I was the lead pastor for 13 years. We called our preschool ministry, had a name called Wamba Land. Maybe you've heard that before. I think if I remember, it's Swahili for creator, Wamba. But either way, it doesn't matter. Wamba Land was highly organized, and it needed to be. We had lots of preschool kids coming. You want it to be safe. You want volunteers to be background checked. I mean, there's lots of kind of structure and organization that goes around that. So how do you make sure it happens? Well, you can't just have a plan. You have to organize for the plan? Who's going to be responsible for the safety procedures? Who's responsible for volunteer recruiting, background checks, interviews? Who's responsible for scheduling? Who's responsible for following up with first-time guests? Who's responsible for alerting a parent if their kid needs them during the service, right? And what resources do they need so that their responsibility can be carried out completely? That's a function of management, organizing. Number 3, leading. Now, this one seems like it would not fit under management because leadership and management are a little different. At a high level, leadership is about innovation, where management is about orchestration. But as a principle or a function of management, leadership is how you equip and support people along the way. So while kind of at a 30,000 foot view, leadership is about innovation and vision and where are we going in the future. But once that's decided, once it's planned, and now we've got some organization to it, leadership within the management function is about equipping those people and supporting them along the way. Go back to our preschool example for a minute. You've given your preschool director the responsibility and the resources, the authority to make some decisions around safety and to design a plan and all that. But you don't want to just say, so good luck. You help them, you equip them, you support them along the way. You give them a budget for that. That's what leadership does within the functions of management. And here's the last one. Controlling. Now, when we talk about controlling, that doesn't sound like a great thing, but within the functions of management, control is how you evaluate success and adapt as you go. Again, when you are implementing a plan and you've organized it, now you're leading through the plan. The last thing you want to do is assume that it's working. No plan is perfectly crafted until it is implemented. You implement and you kind of course correct along the way. And you do that by evaluating so you can adapt as you go. Those 4 management functions are what you should implement in every area of your church, whether it's a current program or environment or something you're starting new. As a leader, you may ideate a new idea, but when it comes to execution, orchestration, that's what management does. You plan, you organize, you lead along the way, and you control so you can measure and adapt as you need to. So here's the challenge. I'd love for you at some point soon, this week, next week, this month, pick one ministry area that's at least you feel maybe running on passion, but lacking a process. Then pick the top function from that list and apply it. Try to create a plan for it. Try to organize it. Try to give some leadership to it, or just measure it, measure it, see how it's going so you can adapt along the way. I mean, it could be that simple. I mean, you could just assign some fresh ownership to that thing. You could create a recurring checklist. That's a part of controlling. You could set a real clear win for the team. That's a leadership function. Because systems, listen, they don't kind of suck the spirit out of ministry, right? They actually make space for the spirit to do the work that only the spirit can do without crushing you in the process. I don't want you to feel like you're a failure or the church is failing, because things feel chaotic, right? Really, all you're doing is probably just trying to lead without the support you need. And that's fixable. You can do it on your own. You can study more about management, leadership, organizational stuff, or you can just get somebody like me to help. I'd love to help you with some of these things. In fact, one thing you could do is you could share this with another pastor if you want, that's feeling some pressure. If you're not feeling it directly, if you are feeling it directly, you should join one of my pressure valve sessions. I do these every month. It's a 1-hour free live conversation with me and a handful of other pastors where we take one pressure and we dig deep into it and find relief today. So join a pressure valve session, or you can just explore all the resources at gavinadams.com. I got lots of stuff that can help relieve the pressure, and we can do that together. Until next time.